You're listening to Artistic Finance, show 206. On today's show, we talk with Christopher Kriz, a composer and sound designer based out of Chicago. We discuss opening a Roth IRA, filing taxes on your own, saying yes to every gig that comes your way, our actual fees on a recent project, talking to other people being good for your health, the University of Storefront Theater, using an agent so you have less stress negotiating fees, and USA 829 contracts, including CBAs, SDAs, POAs, and LORT fees. Now, this episode is actually quite special for a couple reasons. First, the day this releases is 6 years to the day since we've had a sound designer on the show, and that was Cricket Myers back on episode 14. How did we go 6 years without speaking to a sound designer? I don't know. I am shook, but we are righting that wrong, and I am so happy. The other reason this is a fantastic episode is because Chris and I talk about our actual fees on a recent project. Now, it might not seem like much because we're both very calm speakers and we just sort of put the facts out there in a nonchalant way, but don't miss it because I can't say whether it's going to be helpful for you to hear, but I think it illustrates why it is so important for us to be discussing financial things with each other. I won't spoil it for you, but if you listen to nothing else in the episode, do check that part out, and you can jump to around minute 38 to find it, and Chris starts talking about what he was paid on a recent show. As usual, links to everything we discuss is in the description box of this episode or at artisticfinance.com/206. And one note on the audio quality, of course, this happened on a day we interviewed a sound designer. I forgot to record separate audio lines. So because of that, our audio overlaps, and at times my audio was a lot quieter. So I've done my best to level it out, make it listenable, but if you're hearing oddities, you're not going crazy. That is just how it got recorded. All right, without further ado, let's get to the show.
You are listening to Artistic Finance, where we help creatives learn about the business of show business.
Welcome and thank you for listening. I am your host, Ethan Steimel. We are recording this July 28th, 2026, and the news today is that there was an earthquake in Kumamoto, Japan, which collapsed the second floor of a mall and also parts of a factory. So the search is ongoing right now. And that, of course, everyone's always worried when there's an earthquake because there could be an aftershock. So we'll see what happens there. And then in the world, there's wildfires going on in Canada, Spain, and France, and probably other places, but those are the ones that I keep seeing in the headlines. And anyway, so today I welcome Christopher Kriz to the show. Welcome, Chris. And where are you broadcasting out of?
I'm just outside of Chicago at my home in Berwyn, Illinois.
All right. Just because you're up near Canada, are you seeing any smoke from wildfires?
We did. Yeah. Last week or whenever that was. Yeah, we had a couple of days of really kind of dangerous air and it was dark and whatnot. And then the last couple of days we've had crazy rain and floods and damage, and it's the end of the world.
I forgot about the rain. Although we are watching the Bear television show, the final season, it's just raining. So far in the season, it's just raining. I assume the season's going to end where the rain stops and there's like a sunrise or something.
I'll never tell.
You'll never tell. But I was like, is Chicago known for rain? Because that's all that's going on in this.
We get a bunch.
Okay. Chris, you are a sound designer. We met and worked together on Beautiful at Alabama Shakespeare Festival. So I know what you do, and I've heard your work, and I've seen it live in action. But can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what your career is?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a composer and sound designer, and actually, although I was just sound designer on the show we did, composer is what I am first. And most of the shows that I do, I write music for. And I've been doing that for 35 years and many hundred productions later, still doing it.
I stalked your website and I saw that you've composed music for films. Is that a big part of what you've done?
A little bit. I've done, a handful of shorts and certainly would like to get into that world a little more, but yeah.
And then composing, do you, I don't know anything about composing, but do you have a specific instrument that you start with? Or...
This is my instrument right here.
Hi.
This is Iggy. Iggy's 12 weeks old, new addition to the family, but
that is a cat we're talking about that just crawled onto Chris's lap. Cutest little thing.
Yeah.
Does Iggy have siblings?
An older brother who's about 5 years old. So it was a bit of a shot in the dark to see if they would get along well. And so far, very good.
Good. 12 weeks in, I feel like they're a keeper. They're staying.
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. So as a composer, do you play the piano, and is that how you compose?
Yeah, I play keyboards. I play piano mostly, and everything's computer based and recording on the computer. So everything's played via a MIDI controller most days. But piano is my main instrument. I started on wind instruments when I was a kid, which I still play a little bit here and there, but mostly piano.
And then if you're composing for a show, it sounds like you play everything. So do you play all the parts and then make it for all intents and purposes, a track, like a sound, if I were to press play on the CD player, like that music that happens, you've done all of it, not like a band playing it.
Most of the time, yeah. The beauty of technology now is that, there's virtual instruments that are so good. I can play something and record many, many tracks and make something that sounds really convincing, from a full orchestra to a punk band and everything in between. But yeah, if you go to my website, everything on there is all played by me.
Yeah, that's the thing today with everything being so digital, because I was thinking this for Beautiful, the Carole King musical, that the pit was down in the basement, but nobody could see it. And so I feel like that show, it did sound live, just probably because there's musical instruments that are played on the stage. So maybe our brains just were like, okay, clearly there's a pit somewhere. But I feel like there's so many shows where there's a pit, but it's hidden away. In my brain, I'm like, I think half this audience doesn't realize that that's a live band.
I hope they do. I think they do. I mean, they're in the program, certainly. But yeah, that's a pretty big pit. It was a couple brass players, couple wind players, 2 guitars, bass, drums, 2 keyboard players. So keyboards were playing, some strings and other, some other parts, but mostly pianos and electric pianos.
A lot of times during rehearsal, I actually don't know the difference. Like you're saying it's an electronic string, like a violin or something. And I don't always realize that until we stop the rehearsal to hold or something. And then we begin. And then that's sometimes where I realize oh, that's actually has to be a keyboard, because somebody playing the actual violin wouldn't be able to start that note quite like that.
And there's not a full string section down there. That's for sure. It'd be nice if there was, but space is space and a dollar is a dollar, I guess. So.
Yep, exactly. All right, Chris, this is your creative personality here. What is a live event that you like to experience as an audience member?
Music, concerts, everything. I don't get to go to as many concerts as I'd like to, but it's always a highlight. Big rock shows are great, but like a medium-sized venue, a theater, or 1,000-seater, 500-seater, where the audio is really good and, it's intimate enough where you can really see the artist and it sounds great. And that's the best way to see a concert, if you ask me.
That's actually so true, because I always the big rock concerts, I think are always great, but I always have a ticket that's in the 5th balcony of the stadium or something. And so I'm sort of watching it on the Jumbotron. But there is something that as I'm getting older, I don't consider myself old, but as I'm getting old, as I'm aging gracefully, I enjoy seeing the performer, and connecting to the performer. So I feel things where I can not watch them on a screen and I can actually see them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Better.
I mean, we like the light show, of course, and all the great staging that gets designed, but you want to see the performers.
Exactly. All right. Financial personality here. Are you good, bad, or neutral, or something else with money?
I think I'm generally pretty good. I'm pretty responsible. I'm very responsible with the income that's coming in and the bills that have to be paid and all that kind of thing. Historically, I'm not a great saver. Like any additional, but also I don't spend money on crazy things. Like, but if I have extra money, I'll put it into some gear or some, or we just bought a house, so that's where most of the money is going now.
I love it. Yeah. Fidelity just sent my wife an email and it was like, make sure you're contributing to your IRA for the year. And she was like, do we need to do this? Are we supposed to be doing this? And I was like, it's not that I'm not a saver, but we're not going to do that because like I have a plan. I feel I'm semi-responsible enough that I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing I should have been doing a long time ago and haven't. But that's all changing.
Amazing. Okay, so let's go back a long time ago. At the start of your career, what did your finances look like?
Yeah, back to music. I mean, I was a musician, music student, and theory composition major, but had like acted in plays and stuff like that. And then when I started college, like day one, I got a job working in the scene shop of the it was a big art center and they had big theater department, big music department. And, so started learning all of, technical theater side of it and lighting and rigging and carpentry, etc. And then because I was a musician and had a good ear, I sort of gravitated into mixing concerts and that kind of thing. So that's sort of the background. But then when I was 20, I think, a director asked me to write music for a play, production of Midsummer. And I did. And went really well and it was fun. And it sort of like, boom, opened a little thing in my brain. From then on, like, theater and music sort of have been intertwined ever since. But, finances, then I think, I got paid $300 for that college show, in 1991, I think. But I was always working in theater and then eventually a few years later got a job at a big art center and sort of became their production manager for however long I was there, over a decade.
Gotcha. And when you say sort of their production manager, how much of that 10 years of work was sound and composing versus managing the venue or the shows?
I mean, it wasn't called the production manager, but that's kind of what it was. It was TD. It was built, building sets and hanging all the lights and programming lights and then mixing all the concerts and things like that. What I loved about it was mixing the concerts, and that's what kept me there, because we'd get some real world-class artists, touring artists that would come through the venue, and I'd get to mix their shows. And so that was the good part of it, but I stayed there a little too long.
Okay. And then after that, did you branch out? And by branch out, I just mean you went into sound design / composing, like you cut the tie to that full-time job?
It did. All through those years, I was always designing shows and writing music for shows, but, sporadically here and there, and never really got established in Chicago. It was just, whenever I had, because it was a lot of hours in this job. But then in 2008, I quit that job and decided to foolishly decided to start freelancing full time, which I did. And I sort of took a year, bought a bunch of computers, made QLab rigs and a bunch of speakers, and sort of made myself indispensable to a lot of small theaters in Chicago because I had the gear that a lot of people didn't at that time. And I just started saying yes to everything and designing every show in sight and anyone that would have me, and built a career, basically built a reputation, developed lots of relationships, and here we are.
Right. There's so many amazing things about what you've just said. Because one, I always think of sound designers as very technical heavy, because lighting is getting into like networking and switches and stuff like that. And I'm starting to understand that just because of like, I have to use that gear. But prior to that, I always felt like sound designers knew about networks and switches and IP addresses a lot more. So in my brain, I'm always like, oh, sound people are so technical, computer savvy. So anyway, I'm always impressed by that. But also talking with you were doing building and lighting and production management, because a lot of lighting designers become project managers. So when you said there's a lot of time in that job, we all listening understand that, because so many lighting designers become production managers. It's a lot of time. And I've always thought the reason for that is because we have so many like numbers in our head, or there's just so much paperwork involved that like maybe that's a natural fit to go production manage.
I think that's true. I think I'm quick to say that I'm an analog man at heart. The first shows I did, I was splicing a reel-to-reel tape, and I guess I'd call my process, or my sort of way of thinking about sound, is organic more than technical. I'm certainly good at system designs and things like that, everything you have to be, but it's not my focus. To me, it's all about the content, the music, the whatever other sound there is, and the mixing of that. So the tools are important, but sometimes, especially doing a musical, I rely on the talents of a skilled A1 that's much faster on programming a digital console than I am. So it's easier for me to shape the sound than do all the nuts and bolts programming of it.
Yeah. I just love what I'm getting from you, because like, one, you compose your music, which to me that's hands-on, even if you're doing it on a computer. That's like very, as you're saying, analog, I guess. And then also the building of the sets. I feel like most sound designers that I've come across, I always think of them as computer people, and you are much more of a tactile human being.
Yeah.
Which is just surprising me. Is all like, I don't know. I'm sure someone listening now is going to say, oh no, I too am like Chris, and I am a sound designer, and I got into this, through that route. I just don't think of sound designers in the shop like building things ever. And you've certainly spent your time doing that.
Well, I don't do that anymore. That was a long time ago, but I mean, a lot of sound designers are composers, or at least musicians in some way. But yeah, you see me, I hope we get to do a play together where I'm composing, because I'm at the tech table composing. I have my MIDI controller, and I'm, reacting. I don't do a lot of the music until I've seen a design run, so I'm just like hanging out at the tech table working while everything else is happening, and I can just kind of zone into the music with the headphones on, and then be ready for tech. But it happens pretty fast, and I like that. But also, you can react quickly and write something new, or change something, edit something quickly, which didn't used to be the case. But that's the best part.
I love that you said that about seeing the design run and then creating the stuff, because I have just learned in the last month or so that there are lighting designers who will make their cue list before the design run. And that has never been, and it's so logical, because like the script works. So for the most part, it's like, oh yeah, we need lights for the scene, so that'll be a cue. But I have always reacted to whatever I see at the design run, because to me, it's like, I guess I waste time. So I'm so happy to hear you say that you wait for the design run to like figure stuff out.
I mean, for sound and for music, when the transitions are, when particular sound effects are in the script or need to happen. But it's, things like underscore or other textural elements that come in, like that's all reactionary. That's all watching these actors do this version of the play, and that's what I'm reacting to,
Yeah. Going back to one more thing, and then we can move on with more questions. But you said that first time somebody asked you to compose music for a thing, were you doing the sound for that too, or was that just the composing? Like, were you doing the sound design for the whole thing, or was it just make some music for this?
Yeah, no, I was doing the whole thing. that particular show was mostly music, but it was still, designing the system and queuing everything. But there wasn't much else besides the music in that show.
Amazing. Okay. All right. Did we answer what your finances looked like when you started? I guess when you started your freelance career, like when you jumped from that full-time job to freelancing full-time, how'd that go for you?
Yeah. I mean, I had a cushion, so I could, for about a year, I gave myself a year to just dive in and see what I could make of it. And, within a year, I was designing full-time and doing, in Chicago. The beauty of Chicago is that there are so many companies and there are so many shows, lots of non-equity storefront theater where you don't get paid a lot, but it also it's a short time period of tech to opening. So you can do a lot of shows, and you can also, I call that like the real education in Chicago, the University of Storefront Theater, because that's where you can try things and learn things, without, too much worry. Like you have, the stakes aren't as high, I suppose. You're allowed to try and fail. But at one point, I think I did 45 shows in one season, which was insane. I look back at that calendar now and I'm like, I don't know how I did this, but I did. Yeah. So I was able to make it work pretty quickly.
Okay. And then did you because I started freelancing and then only in the last 2 years I've taken a teaching job, which is a steady paycheck. I had opportunities to take full-time work, right? And I never did it because I was like, well, once I do that, then I'm going to get that steady paycheck and I'm never going to go back to freelancing. That was just like a paranoia I had. But you did the opposite. You had the full-time gig. So how long before you decided to make that jump? Were you forced out of that job? Or were you like, you know what, I've been here almost 10 years. Maybe I can, how did you prepare for that switch?
It was actually, I think it was 14 years if I'm doing the math right. But yeah, no, I forced myself out. It was just the right time for me. I was getting more frustrated in that job, and yeah, it was time to go. That's all. And really just pick up what I should have done in the first place, which is, at age 20, whatever, it's what I should have started doing then. But yeah, I just waited a while.
Hindsight is 2020. Yeah.
But also then who knows how that would have turned out, there's no recipe.
Yeah. And just to ask, I can't help myself but ask about the money, but because you're losing your steady paycheck, and you said it took you about a year to sort of right the ship and then be like, okay, sound designing freelancing and composing freelancing, and I got this. I feel comfortable, like this is my career. At the year, were you making as much as you had made at your steady job, or were you making less? Or I'm just curious, was there a shock there?
It took a few years. I think, my expenses were lower. I moved because I was in the suburbs, and I moved to Chicago. Got a small apartment, so didn't have as much overhead, if you will. But yeah, I think within 3 or 4 years, I was making the same amount as the job that I had left.
Okay. Jumping to today, so I think you said 2008, so it's almost 20 years later for the full-time freelancing.
Yeah.
Today, do you worry or do you think about money on a daily basis?
Yes, I do. Of course. I mean, I am not getting younger, and that's just a concern about how long will I be able to sustain this and continue getting hired. I have long relationships with lots of theaters, lots of directors in particular, and that's a good thing. And, we just bought a house. But, this house will probably be able to have this paid off within about 10 years, which is amazing. That looks pretty good for retirement.
Yeah. Congratulations on getting a house.
Thank you.
It's a big thing. Nicole and I, we got one 2 years ago, and it just feels like a big thing. It is a big thing.
Yeah.
That mortgage just is sitting there. We're not planning 10 years. We're planning 28 years from now. We'll have it paid off. Okay, we know about the house. Do you have any debts currently, like student loans or medical debt or credit card debt, things like that?
Just a little bit of credit debt, which mostly added up over the pandemic, but about 10 grand, I think. But that's all. And that'll probably be gone within a year or two. So,
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Do you now, or have you ever used a budget just in life?
absolutely. How could we not? I mean, it's because the majority of our work, I think, is, not steady income or not predictable income. Once you know what you're making and when, you have to, anyway, track all that. So this is coming in here, this is coming in here. All right, this couple of weeks are going to be a little lean. So we plan for that and, or whatever. Or this is going to be a crazy good month. But yeah, you have to know what's coming in.
Amazing. That sounds very organized. And because this is the 6th year I've done this podcast, and the first, I used to be really good about taxes and being organized and not budgeting, but like at least tracking, like here, just in my tax sheet, just writing like, here's the job I did and here's how much it paid. And then like, I would just, I think I would put an X or something, but I would know when it got paid. Anyway, but now I'm just like, have a toddler and I just go flying by the seat of my pants these days. So I dream that one day I will get back and organized like you.
That sounds ridiculous, but I'll take it. Yeah, no, I keep track of stuff. It's all on a spreadsheet, and yeah, each payment, when the contract's approved by the union, yes, all that kind of stuff. And
what is a really good financial thing that you have done that you think other people could learn from, or something you're happy that you've done with your life where you're like, people should try to do that?
keeping debt low and just not living beyond your means, which is a very un-American thing to do, apparently. But yeah, I mean, save up for the things that you need to get rather than put them on credit if you can. I mean, credit's great as a cushion, and we all need to at some point, but that can't be your go-to. Yeah, just, live modestly.
Yeah. I feel like that's a trend on the show. People have said that, which is like, how do you sustain the long career? And it's like, keep your overhead low. Like that is just something you have to do. So what is the opposite of that? What is a bad financial thing you've done that you wish you hadn't done? And maybe other people could learn to avoid doing that.
The only real thing, in a former life and a marriage that, mirrored the time that I was at that other job, we bought a townhouse, and basically at time that we shouldn't have, and then we were forced to sell it and did a short sale on it. It was a huge loss. Basically, we walked away from it clean, without too much difficulty, but it was as an investment, it was tragic.
Yeah. I feel like real estate is one of those things where people think like, oh yeah, you buy the thing and then it goes up over time or whatever, and it becomes an investment or whatever. And I think that's true a lot. However, we've had some people on the show before who say that that's the opposite. Either we bought a house and we sold it for less, or we bought it, but we put a bunch of money into it, and then we sold it for basically the same price. And then with yours, 2008, where was that in that in that area of time?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was but the 2008, that financial housing crisis crunch, all that, I will say over the last couple of years the interest rates have gone up, but I'm 38 and my entire adult life interest rates were basically zero. And I credit 2001 and the dot-com bust, and then to the 2001-ish, and then that financial crisis just kept interest rates really low. And so, of course, we bought our house 2 years ago, and the rates had just gone up. And I'm like, man, when I finally, it's time for us to buy a house. So our interest rate is close to 8%. Not that it matters, but I'm just sharing. And now they're like 6%. Why is this important? Well, because our person keeps saying, oh, you should refinance to the lower rate now. And we're just like, we're just happy to have this mortgage. Like it's such a pain to get it that like we just don't want to rock the boat. So we're just going to carry it. And they're like, you could save like a couple $100 a month. And I'm just like, not worth it. But anyway, okay. So in your work, you've mentioned building relationships. So I don't want to give away your answer before you say it, but how do you find your job and how do you get work?
I mean, it is about building relationships, and it is, a lot of the work that I've done has been through, repeat work with designers and with companies for years and years, a lot of times. I'm not the best sort of self-promoter and networking kind of person. It sort of gives me anxiety. But cold calling, reaching out to places you haven't worked before that you would like to work at. I've certainly done a lot of that without a lot of return, a few results, but I think most jobs come from relationships. It's a director that brings you to a new theater and then you develop a relationship with that theater or something like that. It's about the people that you know.
Let's see, for me, it's directors have gotten me jobs, set designers have gotten me jobs, and stage managers. Okay, once or twice a general manager. But yeah, so those are like for the most part, how I've gotten most of mine. Does yours mirror that sort of?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure I know there's been recommendations that I'm maybe not necessarily aware of where they came from, and I've certainly recommended people for jobs that they got and they don't know that I'm the person that recommended them, whatever, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. And production managers. I guess those. Okay, so all right,
yeah, for sure.
Here's my story. So you say yeah for sure to production managers, but that's something I'm just recently discovering, and I'm like, have I been leading my career wrong this whole time? But production managers are not people that have brought me into projects hardly ever. But I am realizing because here at Rep Theater of St. Louis, the production manager brings in a lot of designers, and I did not realize that production managers are hiring designers like that. My whole life, I wish I had known this because I would have been buddy with production managers. So are production managers a big part of people that bring you in?
I think probably, and I think that's probably changed over the years. I think that's more true now than it was 20 years ago or something like that.
Because I just assumed it was always the director said, "Oh, this is who I'd like," and then the production manager said, "Okay, cool, I will ask them."
But sometimes a director will get a job and they say, here are your designers, and they don't have a choice or have a say, or sometimes the designers are hired before the director is.
Yeah. Working with assistants or fellow designers, do you ever talk with them about pay or help negotiate their pay or anything like before the contracts happen?
Yeah, if possible. Certainly assistants. I have a great agent, and she always tries to make sure that everyone is, getting similar money, if not the same money. Certainly light and sound, scenic and costumes. But yeah, with assistants, definitely you have to look out for them and make sure they're getting what they should and asking for what they should ask for. And
do you ever talk with them about it, or do you sort of figure it out ahead of time?
No, we talk beforehand. I mean, I don't always work with an assistant, but when I do, it's important.
And do they, when you do use them, are they getting paid straight from the producer, or is it going through you at all? Does that make sense?
At a bigger theater, it's through the producer, through the theater. If it's a smaller show, in Chicago, there's a lot of, sort of mid-size equity theaters that are, it's like a $1,500 to $2,000 contract, 100-seat space kind of thing. And sometimes those theaters don't have separate budgets for assistants. So I will bring one in, if I need to, if I'm going to overlap and leave during previews or something like that, have somebody there. And sometimes I'll pay that person or at least supplement what they're getting from the theater in a situation like that to make it worth their while. But a bigger theater, they're usually taken care of pretty well.
And then circling back to your fellow designers, because I know LORT contracts are LORT contracts. So it's sort of like it's dictated in there what the contract is going to be. So in a way, that, okay, I'm getting my fair share and presumably everybody else is also getting their fair share of that. But you said your agent tries to make sure that everyone is getting paid what they should be. So is that something that you just trust them on? You get an offer and you just pass it along to them and then they handle that?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it, and it's usually has more to do with no other designer is getting more than this season. No other sound designer this season is they're all getting the same amount. That kind of thing. That's an easy negotiation. But you can always call the union office and ask what everyone else is making on this show. That's a great resource.
Okay, we learned about your $300 first composing design job. I guess let's jump to 2008 for this question, which is like when you first started freelancing. How did you get that first freelance job, and then how much did it pay?
Oh gosh, that totally ran the gamut because I already had relationships, so I was taking some of those $300, $400 jobs, but then 2008, like one of those mid-sized jobs then was probably like $1,000 or $1,200 or something like that, and then first sort of Steppenwolf or Goodman kind of show was $3,000-$4,000, I suppose, at that time. And also university shows are a great place to go because they typically have good budgets, and I did a lot of university shows at that time, and those were usually around $3,000 in 2008 and earlier.
Yeah. It's amazing how things have gone up a little bit, but not that much in 20 years.
Yep.
Like those numbers are not that far off from today.
Winner, chicken dinner. Yes, sir.
Okay, so then let's jump to your latest job. How did you find that? And if you're comfortable sharing, how much did it pay? And you can just pick some random job if you want.
No, I'm happy to talk about that. I had worked this was Alabama Shakespeare Festival. I had worked there on 3 prior occasions. So they knew me. And I think that's where this job came from the production manager in this case. The first time I worked there was a director that had brought me in. And the show was $5,000 sound design fee.
Okay. And I have nothing bad to say about Alabama Shakespeare Festival. I had a lovely experience there. I thought I just want to take this moment to say that I thought the crew was great. I thought everybody was there was great, and it was fantastic. Yeah,
I agree very much. Can I ask what your fee was on that show?
Yeah, $4,000.
Okay, so that was my initial offer, but I had gotten $5,000 there, like the last show that I had did. Yeah. And so, my agent was like, "What? Come on."
Well, I now have to go back to my emails and look because I usually say I want to make sure that no designer is paid higher than me. So, and what's done is done, but I'm going to go back and be like, I was lied to. So, because my initial offer was, actually, thank you for asking me what I was paid. That's great. This is a good conversation. The initial offer, it's a LORT D space, and it was like $3,800 or something, or $37,500 for like lighting and sound designers, and then scenic is like $3,900. So what I had asked was, I realized I made a mistake here. I said, can I be paid what the highest designer is, being the set designer, set and costumes, because they were getting like $3,900. So I said, can I get $3,900 or $4,000 just to be an even number, because it was like $3,950 or something. And then
wow.
Yeah. So that's how that went for me.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah. And so, well, and actually I said I have nothing negative to say about Alabama Shakespeare, and I do not. But let's just say that the production manager was leaving, and so my onboarding experience was very strange. It was like I would send an email, and it would take like 6 weeks to get a response. So it was just very like weird like that. But normally I didn't know you, but I would have reached out to the set designer or something and just asked. And I also thought there was something weird when I was like, they were just like, yeah, you can have the 4,000. And I was like, oh, that was weird because it was like too easy. It wasn't like there was no like hesitance. It was just like, yeah. And usually that's a red flag for me if people just agree to your terms. So I would have I wanted to know what the set designer was getting paid because usually they're the highest paid sets and costumes, like in the LORT contract. But because it was such a weird onboarding experience, I just didn't do that. And now looking back, I wish I had because I would have. Because my fear is now if I got 4,000, what if the set designer only got $39.50 and I'm getting $50 more than the set designer, which does not seem fair to me. So that played into me not asking them about it. I used the excuse of it was a weird onboarding process, but like I just didn't want to be like, oh, I'm getting $50 more than you. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I would really like to know. I mean, I hope they got a lot more.
Yeah.
Or
well, and then
just more.
And then the other thing is that usually on LORT contracts, they say, oh, everyone's getting paid the same. And so maybe that should have been another red flag for me as well, because nobody said like, oh, it's in the contract or it's in the LORT contract or something like that. Like usually it's like, oh, if you want to get paid $4,000 as a lighting designer and the LORT contract says $3,750, we're going to give you the $3,750 and then we'll give you a studio fee of $250 or something like that. Some weirdness like that. And so that didn't happen. So it should have been a red flag for me, but hey, here we are.
Right.
And I if I will remember, because part of me like doesn't want to go back and check my emails because then I'll be like, oh, darn. My wording was wrong. I should have. But then even if let's say the email does say I want to be paid to match the highest paid designer or something, even if it does say that, I'm not going to go back to Alabama Shakespeare and be like, hey, give me some more money. Like that's not going to happen. So, but now,
next time.
But next time, and now in my brain, because they were very nice there, and they were sort of like they didn't offer me another job, but they were sort of like, oh, we look forward to having you back. And now part of me is like, is this because I saved them $1,000? Is that why they want me back? I'm kidding. But also it's what's going on in my brain.
I mean, I think it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Exactly. But see, Christopher Kriz, this is like, this podcast serves a purpose of some sort. I'm not exactly
absolutely
what purpose we're serving, but I feel like this conversation would have never happened. And also it would not be public. People would not hear about this. And actually, wait, the point I want to make here is so often we say like the LORT contracts are the LORT contracts. And I have learned from doing this podcast that is not true. People like Ken Billington are like, oh yeah, I get paid whatever it is. But then I ask for XYZ on the side. And I'm like, I thought that was illegal. I didn't think that was fair. I thought most favored nations meant everybody was getting paid the same. And that is what it's supposed to mean. But I found that I don't trust that wording anymore. I've just seen it be a lie so many times. So in these situations where USA 829 has a collectively bargained agreement, we have now learned that like, well, that's not what happened, which is totally cool.
And there's always other negotiations for AWC, for I don't know what else, but there's always more things to ask for, I suppose.
Okay, so what job of yours in your long and illustrious career has been the most well compensated?
I think the most I've gotten twice. I got 8,000, and one of those was Steppenwolf, and one was a weird thing that I don't even want to talk about. It was a university project. That's all I'll say. And this is actually worth talking about for somebody like me who is a sound designer and a composer. Quite often, those are two different people on a play, and so a trend that I've been nurturing along is that it should be two separate fees, and that's what happened at Steppenwolf, and has happened at other theaters too. And it's not like twice the amount, but it's like the sound design fee, and then an additional whatever it is, another 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 for composition. Because if that was another person, that would probably be another full fee for that person. And most places are pretty hip to that. And even if they're like, well, that's absolutely not budgeted, but here's another 500 or here's 1,000 or, that kind of thing. It's harder for smaller theaters to do that, obviously, but everyone's, at least in my situation, they've been open to the conversation and have heard it.
Yeah. I think that makes total sense because I just go to projection design where it's like the content, you're getting your projection designer, but the content is sort of like a whole separate line item. And if it's not, it should be, or it needs to be, or everybody understands that it should be, because it's, again, like all these smaller theater companies or even some of the midsize, it's like they don't have the bandwidth to, pay 2 projection fees, one for the content and one for the projections. And same with sound. It's like, I think everybody is receptive to it because it's like, yeah, you're composing a whole thing. That's like a tactile thing that we hear and understand that is bespoke, that is custom to this show. To get something custom like that costs money. To me, that's a natural progression, and I feel like it's understood. Whether or not they can afford it, that they'll have the conversation.
Yeah, or they'll say, next season we're going to look at making this a budgetary thing, and I've seen that happen. Doesn't happen all the time, but it's a conversation worth having.
Yeah. And I want to go a little bit more on that because I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to ask about it. But I assume in your life, like looking at the span of the shows you've done, let's say 90% of the time you have not been paid extra to compose stuff.
Yeah, that's about right. Probably. I mean, we're talking probably almost 600 shows, but yeah, maybe more than that.
It's just
maybe more than that,
where it's like you bring your sound design, and if that involves composing, it's sort of like, I'm not saying that's on you, but it's like you can, unless you're going to be a squeaky wheel and make a point that like, oh, this show I'm going to be composing a lot, and we need to pay me extra for it or pay to get it done or something. I feel like a lot of times it's like, well, you're the sound designer, and if you want to do that, like it's sort of like making a sound effect, right? It's sort of like that's like in very crass terms, but it's like if you want to make those sound effects for the show, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, I figure it's sort of like that.
It's true, and there's one I'm thinking of, but there's probably a couple of pretty major theaters in Chicago that tend to only hire sound designers that are also composers. So they sort of seek out that particular kind of person, which I've brought up to them as well.
Yeah, you said, well, if you were to hire XYZ, who's not a composer, how would you be handling this situation? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was only then that I realized, oh, all the people that you hire are also composers. Right.
Yeah. And this goes back to advocating for yourself. And I feel like the composing, to me, that's like an easy line item to sort of separate from yourself, because you can be like, well, there's that part of it. Like that's an actual thing you can see. Whereas I feel like as a designer, oftentimes, at least I myself, I'm always like, I bundle it all into me. So I'm like, if I want to bring my extra gear or my whatever, I usually like fold that into myself. Whereas I don't like separate it out and say like, oh, can you give me like a kit fee to bring all this stuff? That's like, because I'm sort of choosing to do that. So I feel like with the composing, you have a fighting chance there of making a good case for this is a thing that you need and the show needs. And therefore we can pay me a little bit more. Let me get a little closer to a living wage here.
I tell you what, that was a big part of my early, after 2008, I had a lot of gear that I would rent to the theater for the show that I was doing. So the fee might be $500, but there was also a $500 rental budget or just sound budget. So I would factor that in. It's like, well, I can get most of this money or all of this money as rental. And that helped a lot.
Can I go back to that Steppenwolf? Am I saying that right? Steppenwolf? Let's go back to that Steppenwolf contract. I'm so glad you said that you made, and can I repeat that correctly? That you're saying the highest you've ever been paid for a gig was $8,000.
Yeah, or around. Definitely that, and maybe another that was a little more, a little less, but yeah.
Yeah, but close enough. I'm so glad you're saying that because I have been doing this for 15 years, and I recently So first off, let's go back like the last 4 years. I think I got a gig for $4,000 for like the longest time. $3,500 was the highest I ever got paid. Then it was $4,000. Then I maybe got a 45, and then this year I got a 5,000, a 6,000. Anyway, next year I have one that's a LORT A contract, and it's 10,000. And so that will be the best I've ever been paid. But I'm saying all this out loud because that 4,000, it took me 10 years of my career to get to the 4,000 gig. And I'm like 15 years in, and I got like a $6,000 gig. I'm just saying that out loud for anybody who's listening who either is younger or whatever, is there's no corporate ladder here. There's not like a trajectory, but it took me almost 15 years to get my $6,000 gigs. And I know there are designers younger than me who are on Broadway and doing all this and have more money than me now, and that's fine. And I respect that, and I'm happy for them. But like just the reality of my life, I have only had like one $6,000 gig and a couple $5,000 gigs. And I have not yet had a $10,000 gig, but hopefully if this one works out, the contract's in my inbox. I need to go sign it. I need to go e-sign it right after this. But anyway, so I'm glad that you're saying that because you've been doing this a long time and I've been doing this a long time. And we haven't had a ton of those, it appears.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of younger, recent graduates are like expecting to like graduate and get a job designing at the Goodman or whatever. And, that's not the case. By and large, I mean, there is exceptions, but yeah.
In that contract, I assume that was a LORT contract. I assume Steppenwolf. So like that was pre-negotiated?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember.
Okay, it is LORT, but I'm not going to take the time right now to look up like what the contracts are but anyway, it is a LORT contract. So anyway, so that $8,000 fee, all I'm saying is you were on a show that was in a space that fee was the right number for, right?
Oh yeah. And that was not even their big space. That was their upstairs space. So their bigger fees were and are more than that.
Yeah, and also this $10,000 one that I'm talking about, it's only $10,000 because it's a LORT A. It's space. You know what I mean? It's not like I negotiated a great contract. It's just that is what the contract was. And if anything, the GM, because I don't have an agent, so I do everything on my own. The GM or the production manager, whoever I'm dealing with, is not very. They're a ball buster. Am I allowed to say that? Like they're not friendly to talk with. Like they don't give an inch. Everything is like, they're like, we can't do that. That's the answer to every single thing I've asked so far. So anyway, that $10,000 will be just because USA 829 pre-bargained that, not because of me.
Well, I recommend you get an agent because I got pretty good at negotiating but it's stressful and it creates a relationship that you maybe don't want to have with this theater, or they may see you in a different light or something like that, But the agents they do the dirty work, if you will, and they also advocate for things that you may not even think of,
Thank you for saying that because you're not the first person. And I'm sure if anybody listens to this show, they hear me talk about these stressed out situations that I have negotiating. And that could all be negated if I would just get an agent. I'll just say it out loud. Ethan Steimel is going to get an agent.
Hey.
Good talk. Chris, this is called manifesting. You probably never heard this word before. Amazing. All right, back to you. Do you have an entity, a corporation, LLC, anything like that in your work?
No, I'm just, what are they called? Sole proprietor, yeah. Yeah, but I do my own taxes. I've used TurboTax for 20 years or something like that. I'm pretty good at that, I think. And I probably could be helped by, a tax preparer who specializes in dealing with people in the arts, but then you got to pay them, but
Okay, so you're telling me to get an agent. I'm going to tell you. I think you should get an accountant. And I'm not really saying that, actually. So I have discovered on the show that about 50% of freelancers that I know file their own taxes. So you are absolutely not alone. I thought it would be like 10%, but it's actually like 50% file their own taxes. So a lot of people file their own, and they do so successfully. And you clearly have done. And Heather Gilbert, who is we talked to, and she's Chicago based, she also files her own taxes. And she was doing a couple of Broadway shows at the time we talked. And she's like, yeah, I did the Broadway show, and then I just filed my own taxes. And I was in my brain, I was like, well, if you get a Broadway show, right, surely you get a CPA. But no, she's like, no, I know how to do my taxes.
I mean, as long as you keep good records and you know what you can deduct and know the ins and outs of all that stuff, I think you're okay.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally okay. And I'm just throwing this experiment out, and I know you won't do it because it would be work and nobody wants to do work. And I don't think you should, because you clearly have a system that's going well. But I will say, I reversed you. I had a CPA, and then one year I was like, I'm going to try TurboTax. And I gave up after 16 hours because I still had 2 states to go. And I was just like, I can't. I'm doing it wrong or whatever. And it said I owed I can't remember what it was. I owed $5,000, and then our accountant ended up doing it, and we got $3,000 back, which is like an $8,000 difference, right? So I was like, thank God I went and used the CPA instead of
Now, are you get W-2 income as well as 1099s?
So the year I did this, was my first year teaching, and I had half the year. I had it was a $60,000 contract. I had 30,000 in W-2. But I think the rest of it was 1099. But my experiment for you is, because yours seems very organized, I feel like you should try to hire an accountant and just see what happens. just for 1 year, just 1 year. Be like, here's my TurboTax login or token. I don't know how that works.
Did I mention I was fiercely independent, and I even have anxiety about hiring an accountant? I mean, I'm joking, but also kind of not.
Also not. No, I understand. I also am fiercely independent, but it's weird, the things, because I talked to the show I was doing projections on. My associate was talking about house cleaning, and I was like, yeah, I need to, because we're in this cleaning pattern, but it ruins my weekend knowing that I have to clean the toilets and all that. And so I was like, I think for $150, I could get somebody to come and just clean the bathrooms, and then my life would. And this associate was like you. They're like, my partner wants me to do that, but I don't like people in my space. I don't like them touching my stuff and whatever, which is totally valid. But he was like, but my partner would love that so much. And I was like, you got to get over it, man.
I don't mind people in my space if they're gonna clean my space.
So I'm like, but that's just not an issue I have, where I'm like, yeah, if someone's cleaning, great. That's great. And the same with taxes. It's like, I'm ashamed of my taxes. My partner makes more money than me, and for some reason that's a source of guilt, or I feel bad about it. But our CPA knows that, and he could care less. He literally could care less. He's just his goal is to just get the numbers into the slots as fast as possible, and that's it. He literally doesn't care. And then sometimes he does say stupid things like, Ethan, why are you doing this job? Or you lost money on this job. And I don't appreciate when he says that, but he's not saying it from a place of what are you doing with your career? He's just saying, oh, just so you know, that you lost money on that, or something like that. Anyway, I'm sorry to go off on this tangent, but
no, that's the best tangent.
So I respect it, but I'm just because of my own experience, where I was going to pay money and then the CPA got me money back. I'm like, if you could just 1 year do it and see if. Anyway, it's okay. And also, sorry to keep talking, but it's like for years we had this podcast, right? And everybody kept saying a good financial thing is to find a high yield savings account. And they're like, put your money in the high yield savings account. And for years, I was just too lazy to do it. And then I literally one day, took me 10 minutes. I opened one up on an online bank, and then we moved our savings from Bank of America over to that account. And then within the next month, it gave us $300. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get $300 a month just for having changed this thing. So that's in my brain too, of I'm just so curious with you.
I'll try it. I'll try an accountant, but I think it would have to be year after next, or year after this, because I'm certain I don't have my stuff formatted in the way that they would want. I have my system and I have all my receipts, of course, but I will look into it.
I almost want to share my spreadsheet of like how I organize mine, because every year I say to them, like, how do you want it organized? And they just say, this is great. Or like, this is fine. And I'm like, I want some guidance. I'm like, yeah, but how could I make it better?
I'm sure they see some horror stories. So I'm sure they see absolute nonsense. So
amazing. All right. Okay. Well, I think that you doing your own taxes is amazing. Congratulations. I'm in awe of you because I just don't know how to do mine. And I even tried to put a tax. Okay. Of your income, we already talked about this a little bit. W-2 versus 1099. How much of, what percentage of what do you get every year?
Mostly 1099. I'm certain there's been years where it's been all 1099. But sometimes there's some W-2. There's some theaters that are, like Court Theater is sort of a part of University of Chicago. And so that's a W-2. But mostly it's 1099, which, W-2s help because you get more taken out, and helps on the back end. But, with all the deductions, I'm usually not paying a lot, every year, under 1,000 or about 1,000, sometimes less.
And then do you pay quarterly taxes?
I don't.
Yeah.
And I probably should start doing that, but I just never have. It's never been an issue.
So that's how I am too. I've never paid quarterly, and some people do, and they're really good about it, and some people don't. Yeah. Retirement. Let's talk about retirement. Do you have a plan for it? And what does that plan look like? As in, do you have like IRAs? Do you have a retirement account, I guess?
I'm about to open a Roth IRA, which I've never had. And the biggest regret, actually, this is maybe a bigger regret. I'll also say I never asked, but nobody ever like told me to do this or you should do this so at this moment I have a good USA pension and Social Security, which will be fine. It will be livable, but not an extravagant lifestyle. And I'd like it to be a little more extravagant, or just a little more comfortable. But it was actually I watched Jason Lynch's interview on your podcast, and he's a good friend, and he was like, "Oh, Roth IRA, like from the jump," and I was like, "Oh." And oh my God, he has so many things going on, so many, I couldn't believe it. It's like my brain would implode. That's crazy.
Well, I remember Jason, amazing designer, amazing human being.
Yes.
I remember him saying, I said, like, what was your most well compensated? And I think he said 13,000. And at the time, I think the highest I had ever been paid was 6,000. And I was just like, I immediately felt like, oh, what have I done with my whole life? How have I? But you know what? It's just different.
Balderdash.
Folks.
Balderdash.
But yeah, and the Roth IRA. So everybody listening to this has probably heard us mention Roth IRA because that is like the number one. I would say every other episode we brought up Roth IRA, as in like a good thing like to do for yourself or whatever.
Even at my age.
Yeah. At any age, even if somebody is retired, I feel like, I know it sounds weird, but I feel like there's actually advantages to putting money in. And I say that with retirement, I know because there's an age that you have to pull money out of it. So even if you're of the age where you have to be pulling money out of it, I think there's still a benefit from putting money into it. It's weird. The rules are weird. And you also said, nobody told me, showed me how to do this or said like, oh, you should do this. And that also is a repeating trend on this show. And it's just like education, because you mentioned like, oh, my real education in sound design was doing all the storefront theater. And I feel like that is the case, even if you do go, because I teach at a college, right? And even if you go through my program, you have to get out there and do it yourself and learn. Like there's just so much to doing it. Like, yeah, you'll know the basics or whatever, but like you have to figure out how you're going to do it. And I think the same is for finances, is like there are some people I've come across who have like financial planning parents or really organized people or whatever. But that's like the rare case. And even in that case, people are like, well, I still don't know how to do it because they did it for me type thing. So you saying, nobody showed me how to do this. I do want to mention about the Roth IRA specifically, it didn't come out until 1996. So it wasn't necessarily around when you started.
Long enough. Are you calling me old? Is that what just happened?
No,
Okay.
No, I didn't. Amazing. Okay. So USA pension and Social Security. May I ask, have you done the thing where you log into your Social Security and it gives you the estimate of what you should get when you get out or when you retire?
Yes, not in a while, but yes, I have done that.
Okay. And then I know this is early. This is way, way early for this, but about like you can take it at, I don't know what the rules are, but you can take it at starting like 63 or you can wait till 67. Have you decided which one you're going to do?
Wait as long as I can. Yeah. Ideally 67, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Okay. And then your Roth IRA, you're opening up a year 2026, first time ever?
Yes. I haven't done it yet, but that's the hope.
Break a leg with that. Break a leg. Outside of retirement, do you invest in anything? Stocks, bonds?
No, never have. Again, it's just not a thing that maybe dabbled in some stocks briefly, but it was a vast ocean of question marks, and I didn't want to take the time to understand it and invest in it financially and time. So I didn't.
Yeah, we're running an experiment on the podcast where we invested some money, but I have not checked. It's been a year. I have not checked on whatever those stocks are doing, but I'm sure it's not impressive, whatever it is. As long as they haven't gone to zero, which I think I would know if that had happened. Okay, so this section we may or may not have to do because we sort of talked about beautiful, but I'm just wondering if you have anything for this. But this is called real numbers. What is the actual fee you got on a recent project? And then questions about that if you want to.
Yeah, well, beautiful is the most recent, which is 5. Let's see, I could talk about something else maybe. Open up the old calendar here.
Because I don't know if you have a show. My follow-up questions are, was it just the fee that you negotiated, or was there anything else like the composing or an assistant or anything else, or per diem or a rental car, blah, blah, blah?
Right. Actually, this might be an interesting thing to talk about. And I think maybe I mentioned a bit about this when we were in Alabama. This musical Octet. It's an a cappella musical that was produced at Raven Theater in Chicago, which is a mid-size equity theater. And I think the fee on that was $1,500 or $2,000. And it's an extraordinary production. It blew up, hit of the year kind of show. And it moved to the Goodman recently. Initially, they were calling it a transfer, which is a different kind of thing in the SDA in terms of compensation. Then they switched it to calling it a move, which it is. I think it's a little of column A, column B, because there was some redesign in terms of the set, lighting certainly, different sound plot, and it took a long time to negotiate that, because we assumed that it was going to be, sort of based on Goodman's size and budget, and it's not. It's based on Raven's budget. So it was a much smaller kind of agreement, still a reasonable agreement we came to. And my agent was a big part of all that negotiation, sort of on behalf of all the designers. That's actually a great example of us all getting together as a design team. And there was nothing nefarious or malicious happening. It was all new territory for them too. First musical they'd ever done, first kind of transfer like that or move. So it was all big learning curve and a, newer production manager. So it just took a while. But that was interesting and tricky.
Yeah. And just from a lighting perspective, I'm like, well, if we're going from a small space to a big space, I would have been like, nay, this is not the same.
Right. Right.
Very different.
So what was negotiated ultimately was, a percentage of the original fee, and then a negotiated day rate for when you're in residence, in tech, rehearsals, queuing, whatever. A much smaller day rate than what's suggested on the rate sheet, but it was reasonable, and we all agreed, and plus some AWC.
Can I ask, just because I've never had AWC, additional weekly compensation, what does that look like roughly? Is that like $10 a week, or and does it come in the initial contract, or is it like paid out?
It can. It's usually on commercial shows, but for extensions, moves, transfers, things like that, it's not a lot. It's yeah, like at top tier at group 6, it's $300 a week ish. So we were just looking at it's like $120 a week, something like that. But if a thing runs for a long time, that's important.
Is it running now, or is it have you not
Yeah,
done it yet?
It's got one more week. In fact, it's closing next weekend, I think.
You also mentioned the first time you did it, you said it was an equity theater. What does that mean? What's the definition of equity theater? Because like USA 829 is different than equity.
Oh, equity actors, equity contract versus non-equity. It's just a delineation that we use, maybe more so in Chicago, I guess.
Okay. But I'm just saying, but for you, does that mean something for you as a designer? Like, are you just saying, oh, it means it's a real theater type of thing, like versus a storefront?
No, I don't use terms like that at all, because some of our best theater is non-equity storefront. It just has to do with budget. Non-equity is typically much smaller budget.
Okay, I gotcha. So you're saying maybe a little more supported.
Yeah.
Because the USA 829 contract, I assume you get a USA contract for that, but it's just a project only agreement.
Yeah, I insist on an SDA pretty much anywhere, even if it is not that I do much non-equity shows anymore, but very rarely actually. But it's usually just have to educate the theater on what an SDA is, and if they insist on a project only, I just insist that the writer is basically all of the language from the SDA anyway.
Okay, crazy questions are us that I should know, but I'm going to ask it because I don't. What does SDA stand for?
That's the standard design agreement.
Standard design agreement. Okay, I was thinking like stage directors, and like that's what I thought you were referencing was the director's contract. Okay.
No, that's just the basic USA agreement with the what is this? The 28-page agreement with all of the language that you could ever dream of.
Amazing. All right. See, I love having conversations like this because anybody listening, they're like, Ethan, you should know that. You should know what the SDA is. I'm going to be honest, I didn't. I mean, I know in concept that it exists, and now I definitely know it, and I'm going to start saying SDA.
I mean, and there's other agreements regionally and Broadway, and but that's most of the contracts I do are SDA.
Standard design agreement. Most of mine are project only agreement, which is why I'm using that term. Because anytime I ask for one, that's just what I send them, because that's what I know.
Oh,
SDA instead. Well,
be careful, because there's, unless you attach a writer, there's no language about future use or extension or anything like that. Or
yeah, and that's always something that I'm looking for in the writer. But now I'm learning, if I just did an SDA, then I would want, and the reason I think I've gone to project only agreements is that so many times people said like they don't want to do it, but then I'm like, anyway, we get to the project only agreement. And so that's just sort of now been my default start, but I need to reverse and try to go SDA instead, because then I don't have to worry about the writing as much.
Exactly.
Chris, I'm learning things. This is good.
We both are.
I know these things. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's great about that show, that it transferred and that you worked things out with everyone. That's pretty fantastic. Another reminder to Ethan to get an agent. Saying that out loud again. That we have reached our time, Chris. I have loved talking with you. I appreciate you. And then let's wrap up with this. Regarding finances, just overall, what advice would you give somebody that is starting their career right now and they're going to be a sound designer and or composer working in theater?
Say yes to everything. Like in terms of shows, or mostly everything. I mean, because hopefully you're in a place where you can do that, but anything you do is going to educate you, good or bad, and you'll learn about what to do, what not to do. You'll learn stuff about finance, stuff about design, and just stuff mostly just about people and what to do in the room, what not to do in the room. And, everything, you'll learn something from every experience that will serve you down the road. So just say yes. Don't hurt yourself. Look out for yourself, obviously, but,
Yeah, amazing. Also, I just wanted to make an observation of you as an individual, because you mentioned earlier, you were like, I'm not really into networking or schmoozing. You didn't say it quite like that, but but I just want to observe that, like, working with you, your table was right next to the lighting table. So like we saw each other and you were a very pleasant person to work with. Like you're fun, you're cracking jokes all the time, but you're also at the same time, you're very quiet. And so I think I was hearing those jokes because I was sitting right next to you, but you weren't like shouting these, jokes over the speaker or like to the whole room or whatever. And I just want to say that I really enjoy your personality as like a fellow designer, because I just felt like part of the reason why I loved Alabama Shakespeare Festival so much was because I felt like the designers were like not a family per se, but I felt like we were really good collaborators. And I thought we all really enjoyed each other's company and we worked well together. And I credit part of that to you. Like you were just there. You were always present. You were always involved, but you don't give off vibes of like schmoozing or like going to talk to buddy with the director or the artistic director or anything like that. You're just there and present in the room. And I feel like that is so lovely. And so anyway, I think you're great. I think you're a great sound designer and I really liked working with you. So I'm just saying that.
I appreciate you saying that very much. And I feel similarly about you. We had a great time. And just about being in the room, it's important to me that like the room is chill. If there's somebody that just won't have it and they're okay, leave them alone. That's fine. But like, we're going to be here for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is. And it's just a show. Let's have some fun.
I love that. And actually, I want to mention that we had, I think, 4 days of tech and we like barely made it through the show. I'm saying that because there's always this like clock ticking where like everybody always wants to like run the show on the 4th day. And I'm sure we all also wanted to do that, but we didn't. And in every production meeting at the end of the day, and because you would say like, I need us to run the show before I can like really hear the things and like start taking my notes and doing my thing. The fact that we never got through the show before our like final dress rehearsal day, nobody was upset about it. Like nobody pushed. Nobody was like, we got to get moving. Everyone's going too slow. Or like nobody got stressed out. I'm not saying that was just lighting and sound being chill, because our stage manager was crazy chill. Our director was chill. Our set designer was chill. Everybody, our automation team was chill. And it was just such a lovely place to be, because it was like, wow, we barely got through tech. But yet never once did I feel stress or pressure from anybody, because we all just like marked through and did the thing that we needed to do. Anyway, that's awesome. Chris, last question for you. Where can people connect with you? And who do you want connecting with you, if anyone?
All comers. I have a website, which is christopherkriz.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I think that's all. And I guess I have a LinkedIn, but I never look at it.
Well, I'll friend you on LinkedIn. That's my preferred social media.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even know about it. Like I mean, I suppose I should look at it and update it.
No, you should not. The amount of theater designers on it is not everyone by a long shot. Like the amount of people that don't even have one is incredible. So you do not need to get on it. However, that is just my I just feel like I'm wasting time when I'm the other social medias, and I am equally wasting time on LinkedIn, I assure you. But somehow I feel like it's better. Anyway.
All right. Call me. Call me. That's better. I want to talk to a person on the phone.
Okay. Well, actually, just side note about self-care, talking to other people is a human need, and it's very good for us. And that if you wake up blue, there are other people in the world that are feeling blue, but something that can often help is talking with people. And I'm just saying this because we have phones, but do we pick them up and do we call people and do we answer them? No. So, Chris, I agree. I'm going to call you like this whole hour and a half. Like, yes, we're learning. Yes, we're sharing this for a podcast, but I also have enjoyed this hour. Not that I was in an unhappy mood before, but now I'm in a very good mood because now I'll have like an hour of like coming down from this great conversation that's positive for my life. Anyway, this is a total side note, but I just like talking really is important. It's very important.
I agree. And this has been good for me too.
Amazing. All right, Chris, thank you so much. And I'll see you when I see you.
Hopefully soon. Cheers, brother.
That's it for this week's episode. My takeaways are cold calling versus getting gigs from relationships. Chris mentioned he's done a lot of cold calling, but without a lot of return. Now, that's important to note because, yes, you can get work from cold calls. Send your resume to production managers, send it to theaters, but don't let that get in the way of working and meeting people. Because people have to see you work, they have to see your work in order to build trust. So Chris's idea of saying yes to everything, that's how you're going to get work and keep getting work. So yes, I've gotten jobs from cold calls. I know the Forestburg Playhouse, that was sort of a random application. Webster University, where I am right now, that was, nobody knew me from Adam there. So I certainly have gotten work, but like Chris is saying, 95%, 97% of everything I've done has been from someone I knew, etc. Chris's retirement plan. So I want to point out that Chris has worked as a freelancer. He's going to have his USA 829 pension. He's going to have Social Security, and he's working on owning his home. And he doesn't have stocks or bonds, and he's going to be fine in retirement. He doesn't have a Roth IRA yet either. But I'm pointing this out because it's so easy to read headlines that say you need $4 million to retire, or you need to start saving at 18. And I'm sure all those have merits, right? But also, you can just work in our industry. You can join the union. You can file your taxes every year and just do that work, and your life will be fine. Your retirement will be fine. Because from 2020 to 2023, I didn't put any money into my retirement accounts because reasons. And I didn't mention it on the podcast except once briefly because I was embarrassed by it, right? Because here I am, and I'm always talking with people, and we're talking about how important it is to be saving for yourself and retirement and compound interest. But, it's just life. It happens, and it's all going to be fine. So Chris said retirement is not going to be extravagant, but it's going to be fine. All right, the big takeaway when we found out that Kriz got paid 25% more than me on Beautiful, the Carole King musical at Alabama Shakespeare Festival. Now, this is important because so often sound and lighting designers are tied together, right? And we're always thinking that regional theater, it's so often that we're most favored nations. So you may be asking yourself, Ethan, how do you sleep at night knowing that you did a job for less than your colleagues? And here's the reasons why I am at peace with this, right? I got one of my students a gig as an ALD, right? That's a professional gig. They got paid money. They did the thing. The director, Deidre Goodwin, is fantastic, and she asked me to do the gig. And when a director you like asks you to do a gig, if you're able and it's not harming you, you go do it. So I did. I ran into Jeff Baldwin, who was the automation programmer, and he was my classmate in undergrad, and I hadn't seen or spoken to him for 18 years. So that was amazing. I learned that I absolutely have to stick to my negotiating rules, right? And they're not complicated. They are merely ask for more and ask to be equal to the highest paid designer. I've also relearned that I have to call the union. That's usually something I do, and I was just busy teaching and life, and I didn't take the time to do it. And another reason I was really happy with this gig is that one of the technical staff said to me that the design team was, and I quote, the most approachable, collaborative, and non-judgmental that they have seen in a long time. And now that worries me a little bit about what have other designers been doing and doing over there. But I really loved that comment, and I considered it a compliment. And then the final big silver lining is that we talked about it live on this show. So had I not made this mistake or this debacle or this whatever it is, if I hadn't done that, then we wouldn't have talked about it on the show. And I'm hoping that somebody listening remembers this or learns from this without going through it themselves. So those are all the reasons I can live with myself for this. Now, I do want to say that Kriz had mentioned briefly about calling the union. You can call the union and find out what other designers are getting paid. That is true, but I want to say you can't actually find out what they're getting paid on the current gig because the contracts get filed later. So you won't actually know, like they're not on file at the union until later, right? And you also can't find out exactly who is making what, but they will give you historical ranges for designer contracts. So the union will give you information like lighting designer contracts usually range from $3,500 to $6,000. So then you know, okay, well, maybe I can get as high as $6,000. Now they might also say a majority of them are $4,000. And then you know, okay, it's probably going to be $4,000. I'm going to really have to fight if I want to get higher than that. And they also might say, oh, a lot of them are at $5,000. And then you can sort of have a softer ask or negotiation because you're like, okay, it's pretty likely I'm going to get $5,000. So I just wanted to clarify, you can't quite call and just get the exact information, but close enough. Now, because I love focusing on the negative, I do want to say the things that I'm kicking myself for not doing better. So the first is that I asked a lighting designer who had been down there before what they got paid. Now, this designer gave me a KG response, and if you're listening, hey, it's no shade to you. It's totally cool. And by KG response, I just mean that they said they couldn't remember, but they knew it was low. So I took that to mean, okay, that means ASF didn't go above the minimum, and therefore I didn't push higher. I'm mentioning this because this is why I don't like that we can't speak openly about money, right? Because if it was less taboo, that designer probably would have shared more information or would have said it a little bit easier instead of not really giving me a response. And then the other thing is I know other designers that have been down there, and yet I didn't ask them, right? Kathy Perkins has been on the show. I know she's worked there. Corey Paddock has been on the show. He's been down there. So there were other people I could have asked, and I didn't. And then the other thing is that I didn't say I'd like to be paid the same as the highest designer, right? And that's something I usually say, and I just didn't, right? Which is $1,000 mistake in this situation. And does it matter? Well, that $1,000 could have helped us hire a babysitter, right? But instead we were like, well, not getting paid that much on this gig, so Nicole's just going to suffer for 10 days while I'm away. It was fine. We love our toddler. I'm saying it's fine. I don't know if Nicole was fine. Watching a toddler on your own is a lot. So anyway, and usually what I say is, I would like to be paid as the highest paid designer, or if not, I would like an explanation on why. And the reason I say it that way is because often costumes and scenery is higher. All right, my final takeaway is about refinancing. So for sharp-eared listeners, I had mentioned that Nicole and I are not refinancing our mortgage, even though the mortgage person is saying you should refinance because it'll save you money, etc. But we don't want the hassle. All right, so now let's talk about the Artistic Finance Patreon, but it relates here. So when I do an interview, I will then go take the raw audio and I will do just the quickest of edits and I will put it onto the Patreon podcast feed. So for patrons, they get the episodes early, but it's an uncut, just here's the interview. So I went and posted the Christopher Kriz interview, and one of our patrons, Brian Elston, commented and he said, I'm just quoting his quote from Patreon, refinancing isn't rocking the boat. If you can really get 2% better, it's totally worth it. We refinanced our mortgage to get 0.5% better, and it paid for itself in about a year. Now, Brian, I am so sorry for doxing you. Now people know you exist and that you have a mortgage. So if you want me to take this down later, let me know. But point taken, thank you. I am being lazy. I am dragging my feet. We're going to do it. All right. So my teaching paychecks start up in a couple weeks with the school year. Let me get those paychecks running, and then we will go and we will refinance, and our lives will be better. Now, I will say it's actually like 1.5, like 1.5 percentage points lower we can get. So it's not quite 2%, but your point still stands. It's going to be helpful, and it's going to pay for itself. So, all right, Brian, point taken. And also, Brian, thank you for being a patron. I just got to say, it means so much. I am so grateful. Thank you. All right, 2 housekeeping things before I let you go. AI. I am prepping episodes with designers talking about AI. So if you know of anybody that is using AI in their workflow, let me know. So we've already recorded the kickoff episode where we had a variety of designers across areas, tackling the ethics of it and a little bit of workflow. And I'm now starting to record episodes with panels of each design discipline, talking about how people are actually using it in their workflow. So I'm getting a group of lighting designers together, a group of costume designers together, etc. And so if you happen to know of any designers using it in an interesting way, let me know, because I would love to have them join the chat. And it goes without saying that it will be a safe space. It will be a no judgment zone. I am just interested in finding out what real people are doing. And you can be anonymous for all I care. I just want real world use cases. And the final thing, I am thinking about going to LDI this year. I definitely want to go next year when it moves to New Orleans and to October. I'm thrilled about that. But this year it is still in Las Vegas, and it's in early December. So let me know if you are going to be going, because I am on the fence just because it's time away from home and it costs money to go. But it is always such an enjoyable time to record in person, and often I get to meet new people. So if you're going to be there and you would be interested in me doing a live recording, let me know, because I'll be more inclined. If people say they're going, I'll be more inclined to go as well. Okay, that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you are finding value in these conversations. I feel like I found value in today's episode. So I'm going to keep doing them. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And until next time, break a leg.
Thank you for listening to Artistic Finance, where we interview successful artists, leaders, and investors to help educate and inspire the creative community. To access our show notes and resources, go to artisticfinance.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any decision, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Artistic Finance. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.